tehari.
Like beef
Curry.
biryani.
Beef biryani. Oh, biryani.
Like Bangladeshi style.
Okay, we'll be back. Okay. Right. All right. So, Assalamu alaikum. Ramadan Kareem. I'm back here at BDesh, and I want to show you what's going on right here. This is the server meal. So let's see where all this is coming from. So let's go to the kitchen. And earlier on, they were very busy prepping and then packaging up the foods, but they're almost done because now they're ready to actually ship it out. So what they've created here is charga chicken, grilled, some plain rice, and some chickpeas. And that's a pretty comprehensive meal. Right there, you've got the protein, it's fairly lean. You've got chickpeas, which is high in fiber, as well as protein. And then you've got a little bit of carbohydrates, especially for people who've been busy working. This is a great meal for them. So they were earlier on prepping and then packaging it up, and you saw what's out there. Now let's take a little walk around where they're doing the iftar. So a lot of preparation in all of this, but at the end of it, when it all comes together, then it really is nice to see it getting packaged up and delivered to people. So here they're just wrapping up a little bit. This is a couple of the soups that they're making here. One of the soups is like a chicken soup. The other one is another vegetable-based soup with chickpeas and lentils. Moroccan. So it's called the Moroccan harira soup. Sounds really quite appetizing. So let's keep on looking at some of the prep that they're doing.
Usually they do eat that every day in the Ramadan.
In Ramadan.
Because
This
it's
one?
lentil, wheat, chickpeas,
Right? Okay.
and some meat.
So this harira soup, the young lady is telling me, is a comprehensive meal. She's exactly right. Because it's got the variety of grains and lentils and beans and legumes. And that is really a complete meal. Protein, carbohydrates, and fibers. Yeah. This young man is making the kind of the dough that's part of the mixed vegetable, the pakora. So he's got the spices in there. He's got the gram flour. You know, gram flour is made out of chickpeas, so it really isn't white flour. It isn't refined carbs. It's actually a protein base. So that's the mixture. He's got the spices in there. I think he's going to dunk the vegetables before frying them. And here they're making another kind of a biryani dish, which is going to be a mixture of rice and then some of the beef parts. What was the name of the dish again?
Tehari.
This is a tehari biryani, right? So this is beef.
Beef and rice.
And beef and rice, yeah. And
So
then,
I'm making the beef first.
Yep.
So it's gonna go with rice,
Yep.
and then
Mix-
put it in the
oven,
and
finish.
then-
Yeah. So I noticed that you got some yogurt in there. Is that right?
Yes.
So the yogurt what tenderizes it. Yeah. And sometimes there's the live bacteria in there that might help.
Yeah.
And you've got the onions in there, so I'll let you carry on. Yeah, so let's go back into the kitchen area. This young man was actually busy making samosas. So, you know, the painstaking nature of creating the dough on the outside, he was making these wonderful triangular shapes, and it's finished now. But then he would fill it up with the filling, and they call it shingara, which is more of a vegetarian dish. But when you see it being made fresh, it's kind of very appetizing. You know, not the kind of thing that I may eat really, but the main meal definitely is very healthy. So let's keep going around. And we can talk about some of the nutritious values of the food that we have here. Because, you know, unlike packed food, which for convenience, that's the only logical way to serve a large number of people, packed food that's made out of sandwiches or wraps, they're refined carbs. They're really not the best nutrition. And what you've got here is really a proper meal that you might eat at home, and yet it's portable, it's going to go to people's homes. So these are all ready for packing, and when I came in earlier, there are tables of these things. They're being transported into the van, and then we're going to go and see where they're serving some of these food items. So the food really, in my mind, when it comes to the soup, as I said, they had the soup where it had all the mixed grains and lentils. It's a very complete meal. That's a great way to break a fast for anybody. So one of the things about fasting is that when you are fasting, you're not introducing any carbohydrates, you're down-regulating a pathway called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. When you don't eat proteins, you're down-regulating another pathway called mTOR. It's a protein-sensing pathway. And then when you're not eating anything, even fats, then what happens is that your body then goes into a certain pathway which is designed to build you up. So the body starts to release what we call growth hormone. It comes as the thing that you feel when you're hungry. That's called ghrelin. Ghrelin is trying to tell your body you're hungry, so you eat. But that ghrelin is called a growth hormone releasing hormone. So the more you feel hungry, the more you release growth hormone. That is the value of fasting by day. And then for those who are afraid of losing muscle mass, that's not true, because you're releasing large amounts of leucine, the most abundant amino acid in the body. So when you're fasting all day long, you've got the growth hormone, you've got the amino acids circulating. So it's very important that when you break your fast, that you nourish the body. So by day, you are stressing the body by not eating and drinking. And so when you refeed yourself, you're now going to be anabolic. You're going to rebuild yourself. So if you break your fast with desserts and sugars, you're going to blunt that growth hormone surge. So it's important that when you break your fast, try to bake it with proteins, try to bake it with good quality fats. So halim is a great way. These soups are great. These chicken soups, I forgot this Moroccan soup that they had here. And apparently in Morocco, that's what they do with every meal. So very important that when you're fasting all day long, it's very important to break the fast. And last time I told you that when we break the fast, our state of fasting should not be over, in the sense that the spiritual nature should continue, not only for the prayer, but that you should be careful how you treat your body. Don't abuse your body. When you're eating processed foods, when you're eating refined foods, when you're eating a lot of fried foods, you are doing a disservice to your body. And during the Ramadan, when we are so conscious about what we talk about, what we hear, what we see, we also should be very conscious about how our body is being treated. This is a great opportunity to turn down inflammation. This is a great opportunity to lower your blood pressure, great opportunity to lower your blood sugar, lower your abdominal waist. And this is all done through fasting, provided you break your fast well. The other component, we get rid of the noise in the background. The other component of the fasting is how you start the fast. So for suhoor, I would recommend the same thing. Have the soup, have the halim, have the mixture of all these different beans and lentils and proteins, and that's the way to start. Don't start the fast with toast. Don't start the fast with cereal. These are called refined carbohydrates. When you have refined carbohydrates, you're going to surge, your blood sugar will go up, and your insulin will go up. And that won't turn on the good signals. It's not going to allow the growth hormone to be released. So very important to start the fast the right way, and also to finish the fast the right way. And during the fasting, when I described to you that you're liberating more amino acids, you're liberating more growth hormone, imagine if you just did a little exercise. Go walking maybe 30 minutes before you finish the fast, or at a later time where you're not exhausted, you're not dehydrated. If I go to the gym, I go after 5 o'clock, because I know that if I have a workout and I'm tired, I don't have to suffer too long. But you'll be surprised. So not only are you releasing growth hormone during fasting, you're going to release growth hormone when you're exercising. When you do those back to back at the same time, you're now doubling the health benefits. So not only can you minimize disease, you can actually become more what we call anabolic. You can actually be more vital. You're actually, anabolic means to grow. And instead of feeling restricted, that's a psychological thing. When you're not drinking water and you're thirsty, when you're not eating, you feel like you're sunken in and you feel weak and tired. That's more of a psychological state. Because truly, like when I'm activated, like I'm talking, I'm excited, if I'm going to go to the gym, once you get going, you'll be surprised that your body is releasing the epinephrine and the norepinephrine to liberate the fuel that's stored in your liver, in your muscle fibers. There is no shortage of storage in your body. So there is no doubt that there is any risk of becoming hypoglycemic. And frankly, for people on medications for diabetes, medication like glyburide or insulin, you would, if you wanted to fast and maintain your medicine, reduce your medicine. But talk to your doctor about specific health concerns. But someone who's a diet-controlled diabetic can fast safely. Somebody who has blood pressure can fast safely. Somebody with high cholesterol, basically almost everything short of people on insulin and some oral medications to lower blood sugar. And those can easily be negotiated by lowering the dose and being careful about what you're going to start the fast with and how you're going to end the fast, right? It's very, very important. And this is not during the month of Ramadan. This is the kind of thing you must think about when you finish Ramadan and you think about breakfast. Breakfast means to break your fast. So if you've been fasting all day long, maybe you want to extend breakfast and not break it till many hours later, and maybe stretch the breakfast into a brunch. That's extending your period of fasting. After Ramadan, you can continue these good habits because these are actually anabolic. They're actually good for you. They actually can modify your disease pathways. So really, what we're doing here at BDesh is feeding people, and that's why we're here today, to show you the good work that is being done. So if you can support people in their venture, whether it's through finance or your own labor, come help them with deliveries. This is the critical. One of the things that I was, people mentioned is that what is the value of giving? One of the things that research has shown is that when people are generous, generosity actually translates to good health outcome. Now, I don't know anybody who's actually explained it, but I have a clue where that might be coming from what we call the vagus nerve. So from the brain, the vagus nerve travels not only behind the neck and the carotid artery, and then it goes behind the heart and onto the diaphragm and through the spleen and into the intestine. So look at the number of organs that the vagus nerve controls. The vagus nerve is by the carotid sinus. That can control the heart rate. The vagus nerve actually wraps around the heart and innervates. That means supplies nerves to the heart, the ways to slow it down. Then it goes to the diaphragm. That's why when you have deep breathing maneuvers like yoga breathing or meditation and deep breathing, it controls the vagus nerve. I'm going to tell you the value of that in a minute. Then why does it go through the spleen? And then how does it communicate to the intestine? So what the studies have shown is that the vagus nerve, when it's activated, can activate what we call the parasympathetic system, which reduces inflammation. So studies have shown that when you activate the vagus nerve, and you can do that by deep breathing, you can do that by carotid massage, where I have what's called an electrical stimulator that stimulates the vagus nerve. You can do it with electrical stimulation. And then you can do it with sometimes cold temperature on the head. So what we're saying here is that when you activate the vagus nerve, those signals that travel down the vagus nerve through the spleen and then into the intestines reduce inflammation. Conversely, when you don't downregulate the vagus nerve and you have too much stress, which is called the sympathetic drive, right? So you have the sympathetic, which is your fight and flight. This is where you are very motivated, or your action. The parasympathetic is when you calm down and relax and it resets you. So those are always working throughout the day. More at night in the parasympathetic, and by day more sympathetic because you're driven. But what happens in this complicated world that we have, we're sympathetically driven. We're constantly on the go. Either it's physical or it's emotional or both. And so we really need to think about the parasympathetic, and one of those is through either meditation, but that's where the giving comes into it. Something must be happening in the brain when people are donating or they are volunteering, or they're doing any good deed. Selflessness, gratitude and showing selflessness, helping others, has shown in evidence that people live longer and have less disease. And one of those may be because of its influence on what we call the parasympathetic nervous system. And you can control it by electrical activity through special gadgets. You can massage it, which is difficult. You can do deep breathing, which I believe is the best and easiest way. So one of the techniques you can do right now is that if you are now, or you feel stressed, you can take a deep breathing exercise where you breathe in one back to back, and then you breathe out very slowly. So you breathe in, and second in, and then you breathe out. Now, that's one technique where you breathe in, followed by a second inhalation, and then a slow breathe out. That controls the diaphragm, that controls the vagus nerve. The other one is slow in and slow out. So you can breathe in through your nose very slowly for a count of 4, and then you breathe out through your mouth for a count of 8. So you breathe in. So that technique also activates the vagus nerve. And so you may have heard some of the hustle and bustle. That's because people are getting excited about getting things packed and ready to get into the van. So very shortly, we're going to follow them, and then and then go live hopefully and show them where it's being delivered, right? So I don't know if we can. We're going to keep. So let's go to where we're going to head out, and wow, it's such a strong draft over here. So I think this is one of the trucks that they're going to be using to transport it. So we're just going to wait for people to get out, and hopefully we'll head out with them and be able to, show you where these food are being delivered. We can't pause it, right? Should we just head that way? Yeah, let me ask these guys.
Yeah, we're still live.
We're still live again. Is somebody going to 7-Eleven now? Yeah, we'll go with you. Maybe.
Do we want to get on the same?
No, we'll drive behind you.
Oh, behind you.
Okay, all right. Let's go. Why don't we get some fresh air whilst we wait for people to transport this food to where I think a lot of people who work, and they in order to find employment, they stay in a certain location, which we're going to go visit. And frankly, these people, if they don't work, they don't get paid, and they don't get fed. So I think it's going to be important. So, look, this is changing pace a little bit. I think that what we need to do is embrace hunger. A lot of people are afraid of hunger. Hunger is growth hormone. Hunger happens when we haven't eaten and our stomach releases ghrelin, as I mentioned earlier on, but there's a lot of noise in the background. So you have to embrace hunger. Frankly, if you're not hungry, it's doubtful if you're releasing growth hormone, because that hunger is a signal that comes from ghrelin. Ghrelin is what we call a growth hormone releasing hormone. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll go in our car. Yeah. So I'll drive.
You just start or not yet?
So,
You just start today or not?
yeah, you can ask. I think so. Let's head that way. It's open. You have to pull hard.
Oh, yeah.
It's very heavy. Yeah. That door is hard. When I first came in, I thought it was locked. It's the wind pushing. Oh, it just got disconnected. We're back. All right. So we're talking about fasting. I think that the fast out there, and the longer you fast. So if you can learn to embrace it, what I tend to do is, if it's not Ramadan, then I'll be drinking beverages, whether it's herbal tea, protein shake maybe, because you're always going to be in a state of fasting, provided you don't have more than 50 to 60 grams of carbohydrates. For me, it depends on where you get those 60 grams of carbohydrates, because frankly, if you're having refined carbs like bread and pasta, that's going to spike your insulin and definitely break your fast. But they say that to be in a state of fasting, you can still remain in a state of fasting even if you have 30 grams of carbohydrates. I prefer not to have 30 grams of carbohydrates, frankly, because that's equivalent to a bagel or 2 slices of bread. So, so if you are having something like 2 bagels or 4 slices of bread, then your state of fasting is over. And again, those are refined carbs. So when you do have carbs, if you have things under the ground, whether it's sweet potato or yucca or yams or cassava, these are more vegetable than they are carbohydrates. but they are complex carbohydrates. The definition of complex carbohydrate is to say that it doesn't become sugar rapidly. When you have something that's refined, that's like a flour, it's refined from the grain, and even quick oats that's refined, then it becomes sugar more rapidly. And sugar is really not the problem. It's the fact is that when the insulin spikes, it damages the insulin receptor. So when the insulin receptor is damaged, the body thinks that, well, the body can't function as well. And so the body makes more insulin. And this high insulin state is where we understand is associated with decreased cognitive function or dementia, blockages. So even though you've heard of stories where the cholesterol and LDL is causing the blockage, in fact, insulin resistance is driving it. So let's go back and just talk about insulin for a second. Insulin receptors are on every single cell in the body, because without the insulin receptor, you cannot fuel your cells. Every cell in the body has to have some degree of glucose. It's highly regulated. That's why the insulin is such an important hormone, and it has to function adequately. And when it doesn't function well, that is to say insulin resistance, you're actually saying that there is inadequate fuel to the cell. Now, if you have insulin receptors on your brain cells and you have insulin resistance, you have less fuel for the brain. And that is a state that's been confirmed by biopsy. Now, if you have, say, fatty liver, which is a very common condition now, where the fat cells have infiltrated what would have been your liver cells, which were designed for detoxification and many other health benefits for immunity and protein synthesis and lipid metabolism. So when you have fatty liver, you are already also in a state of what we call insulin resistance. See, I'm doing two things at once. I'm driving and talking. Isn't that amazing? Don't do this at home. So insulin is a vital signal for fuel to enter the cells in an efficient manner. That's the key. The word is efficiency. And when there is inefficiency, then the high levels of insulin that circulate also reflect the fact that you have inadequate fuel to your liver cells, your heart cells, your blood vessel cells, your brain cells, your skin cells. So this is why it's so important to control insulin resistance, because if you don't get the fuel to the cell can't function. So indirectly, you are actually aging that cell. So that's why the skin will look older, the liver will be older, the brain will be older, the heart will be older. And this is why most diseases that we have are called age-related diseases. And high sugars can damage it. High inflammation can damage it. Oxidation can damage it. And so high insulin is a bad state, because unlike what we used to think, that insulin is just for regulating glucose, insulin actually regulates hormones. We know this because when people have polycystic ovarian syndrome, the insulin signal, which we describe as insulin resistance, high insulin levels, actually cause the typical symptoms of excess hair, which we would call hirsutism, irregular periods, particularly this is for women, of course. And then they have high levels of cortisol, weight gain, they have more pigmentation, they're more liable to get diabetes, a significant number. So insulin resistance affects hormones, insulin resistance affects brain function, insulin resistance affects blood vessel function and liver function. So that's why insulin is not just a receptor, it is not just for glucose entry and exit. That's at the simplest level. At a more complicated level, it also regulates many downstream organ functions. So going back to fasting, when you're fasting, you're not introducing any carbohydrates into your body. You're not introducing any proteins into your body, nor fats. During this state, particularly because you're not putting carbohydrates in, you're not only activating growth hormone, you are also down-regulating that insulin. That insulin receptor can recover. Your body has time to detoxify. When you're constantly eating 3 meals a day, 5 meals a day, when you're constantly snacking, your body doesn't have a chance to rest these pathways, these systems that we have. So that's why so many health benefits of fasting, not least the fact that when you're introducing less carbohydrates into your body, then you have a better chance of staying in a lower insulin state. That means for people who have a propensity for diabetes, if you don't demand insulin production from your pancreas, then you can conserve what you have. Conversely, if you have genetic predisposition for diabetes, that means your parents have it, your uncles and aunts have it, then what will happen is that the more refined carbs you put in, the more insulin has to be produced. Whilst you have enough insulin reserve, your blood sugar is normal. But as you demand more insulin, you are now losing that insulin and the reserves are going down. Did you know that by the time that your sugar starts to go up, which doctors describe as early diabetes, you have lost maybe more than 50% of your insulin reserve. So really, this fasting is a critical time for you to not only stop all the foods for now, but then moving forward after Ramadan is over, keep your carbohydrates down, particularly refined carbohydrates. I myself try not to eat any refined carbohydrates. My carbohydrates come in the form of sweet potato, comes with quinoa, comes as the form of yucca. It comes in my beans and the lentils. That is my carbohydrate. And so it's important for me to make a menu that is tasty yet can still be nourishing. You know, the problem is people don't take the time and effort to put the thought into getting the ingredients and the preparation. You know, the reason why the Mediterranean diet is so successful is because it's a very cultural thing. They take their time. It's a family thing. It's more of an event. Their lunch in Spain, I know for sure, and maybe even in Italy, they spend maybe a couple of hours over their lunch, and they work later in the day. So just the culture of food is so different. I think that's one of the diseases that we have. Our culture is run, 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 make money, you know, spend money, and run, run, run. Our culture has gone away from some of the substantial things. When I say our culture, I mean the American culture. I mean, you know, the fact that we're in America, we're American. And I think that we need to understand that there are certain things in this world that's already been told to us as good guidance and frankly faith-based. So one of those is what we call circadian rhythm. When it's night, you're supposed to sleep and your melatonin goes up. When you wake up and the light shines in your eye, melatonin goes down and your cortisol goes up. Now, when you disrupt that, did you know that the melatonin receptors are in your pancreas? So when you go to sleep at midnight or later, you're actually damaging the insulin receptors in the pancreas, again, resulting in insulin resistance. So night shift workers actually have more diabetes. Night shift workers have obesity. And one of those reasons is probably because there is more insulin resistance because they're damaging the melatonin receptors in the pancreas. The other is probably because to stay awake, what do? We munch. And so, the body is a complex thing. We should never think of it as just one factor. There's multiple factors involved, and you should think of all of them and try to incorporate them. We're pulling up very close now to where we're going to be serving the meals. And I hope people are joining and finding the information useful. But I think what's really useful is the good work that people do. During this month, it's not just about fasting. It's not just about good behavior and prayer. It's about also good deeds. And when you're doing selfless things, when you're helping other people, what's happening is that you're activating your vagus nerve. That's the mechanism that I believe that is working in. And for people where we talk about the science of it, the science is that you have a longer life and less disease. And the way I equate that to is that in those people that are generous and help people, what's happening really is the fact that they're activating the parasympathetic system, which is really an anti-inflammatory system. And an anti-inflammatory system, a rejuvenating system, a resetting system. That's why at night you activate the parasympathetic. That's your rejuvenation. See, when we just talked about the night shift worker, the time they're supposed to rejuvenate at night, they're working. And by day, the circadian rhythm and the way the body is built, it wasn't designed to be sleeping in the daytime. So hence why they have the problems. So let's get out and see what's being done. And we're going to maneuver here a little bit. All right. So this is where the truck pulled in with the packed food, and you can see the people coming in. I'm going to keep a little bit of a distance here, and we'll work around the side. we don't want to get too many faces, but just to show what we're doing here. So, I think, we were talking about the health benefits of fasting, and I think it's not only the state of fasting with the food and the water, it's our emotional state, it's our spiritual state, and that state doesn't end when we break our fast. I think that we need to continue that right until we begin the next fast. That's the way when you go to sleep. I think one of the things that people talk about, is, especially in Islam, I like it, is that everybody has rights. And so, your children have rights, your parents have rights, your spouse have rights, and frankly, your body has rights. And I think that during the month of Ramadan, I think that it would be foolish not to take advantage of the benefits of that statement, that your body has rights. So how you take care of your body is a crucial part of that. And fasting brings on so many benefits. Breaking the fast brings on so many benefits. The spiritual side of it, the giving side, the generosity that I think people need to be thinking about. So, I think this it's timely because it's almost it's almost time to break our fast a few hours from now. But here people can have a nourishing meal. So I think it's a good thing. So I'll let people enjoy their meal in privacy, and I suspect that we'll be here as long as people are coming in.
Can you just hold it? I'm gonna
Yeah.
hold it like that.
Yeah. So let's just continue the conversation a little bit. I respect people's privacy, so we should be very careful about filming people's faces, because everybody has they have their pride, and helping people is our duty, really. So oftentimes people think of charity as some sort of additional extra. Frankly, maybe I'm wrong, but I believe I'm right. When we are gifted with shelter and comfort and food and education and wealth, it's actually a right upon us that we must take care of the people who are less fortunate. So, changing pace a little bit in our conversation, I was just describing that charity is not a option. It's a right that people have. And I think that if Imam Majid was going to join us today, he would have explained the real explanation, which is that everybody has to have dignity, and the people in this world were made with some that have and there are others who don't have, and it's the test to see how we conduct ourselves. And so hopefully, I think that during this month we can be healthy in so many ways. And I'd like people to be physically healthy. I'd like people to be emotionally healthy. I'd like to be able to think that that we're a good example to the society, to the community, I should say. Community first, and then society later on. And that's I enjoy these kind of things. I'm so happy that BDesh is doing the server meal, which is on their trucks. BDesh does a lot of good work for the Rohingyas. Frankly, all people in need. I mean, just recently I reached